because I think one thing that we have all started to realize is it's not just going to be Agentforce. Of course, Agentforce will be there for the future, but I think it's combination of data, it's combination of metadata, it's agents, it's apps also. So it's combination of all the things that our customers will eventually need. So Dreamforce, definitely there will be content around everything. At least that's what we'll do for the developer community and admin community. That will definitely have zones for all sort of content. But that's it for now. But I don't know how things will change. But at least that's the plan at this point. So we've heard that feedback at TDX is like it was too much of Agentforce. So without further ado, let me see if I can share my screen. You all can hear me now, right?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I will share.
Yeah,
There you go. I'm sharing my screen, and hopefully you can all see my screen. We can go through this talk. I would like to keep it interactive actually, because it's anyways like evening time, I guess, after tired work, everyone, right, for the day. Yeah, so my name is Mohit, and thanks for invite. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce. My job.
Mohit, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mohit. Are you sharing your slides, or are you sharing the meeting itself? I think you may have shared the wrong desktop.
Oh, okay. Let's backtrack. Let's stop. Share screen. Okay, yeah, I see. There you go. Now you should see this.
Now we can see it. Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, my name is Mohit. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce. My job is to help developer community and other communities too here, like admin and other audience that we have, and bridge you all to the product teams here and the products that we are building. There's a lot of things that are happening at this point. I can only tell that, and it's crazy the amount of innovation that's happening across the industry. So really excited to be actually a part of this whole revolution that's happening. It's mind-boggling. At least in my career of 14 years, I haven't seen something that's like AI, nothing like AI, and the way this is all releasing and things are getting updated in this industry. It's overwhelming, but that is the state that we are in. Like today, I don't know if you have seen Claude 4. Like Claude came up with their Sonnet 4.0 model. I was just playing this morning and it completely blew my mind. I was like, Sonnet 3.7 is best for coding. Now I have to change this and Sonnet 4.0. So you see, Google did their I/O conference yesterday. Here at Salesforce, we are gearing for the next version of Agentforce 3.0. So as you can see, the industry is moving. It's very fast and moving. And we'll talk about Agentforce, but I think for now we'll talk about how to excel at your next hackathon. As Shiva kind of requested me that let's share some of the tips and tricks on how these hackathons are judged. I have been part of some judging here, I can say, and I exactly know how we judge these. So I want to share like how do you excel in your next hackathon. So before I get started, some forward-looking statement. Of course, this hackathon, it doesn't apply, and there will be hackathons. We'll keep doing this hackathon throughout the year. Actually, we have plans to keep doing these hackathons. So, if you are not able to like say win, don't get disappointed. You always have the opportunity in the next hackathon, right? Hackathons are a great way, by the way, to learn. And I just want to remind everyone that join our dev community Trailblazer channel. That's where we share a lot of content, and also there's a lot of engagement from our dev marketing team. So if you're not part of it, that's great. Trailblazer community group to be part of, so you can get all the updates as things are getting changed here. So today, this is my agenda. We're going to talk about hackathons. What should be our mindset for these hackathons? How should we prepare pre-hackathon? How do we ideate it? How do we execute it? and then how do we demo our work, and we'll do a little bit of workshop. Actually, sorry to put you on spot, Shiva, but we'll pick one of your presentations actually for the hackathon and see how we can like really make it um, much more better, for easier for judges, also make it much more I would say crisp, so you get more brownie points from the judges. And I also want to share what judges look for when they evaluate your hackathon, and then we'll leave some some time for Q&A so we can all discuss. So let's talk about the mindset first. Like, what should be the mindset when you get into a hackathon, right? Something like hackathon. I'll tell you my personal experience. So I actually came into the Salesforce ecosystem, like became big part of the Salesforce ecosystem by winning a hackathon. So if you go look for Summer of Hacks hackathon, back in the days, this is like almost, I would say, 12 years back. So Salesforce came up to a town in Bangalore. So I'm from Bangalore originally, but now that I'm based in US. But they came there, and Salesforce has just launched Salesforce One Mobile. It's basically Salesforce on mobile. Mobile was hot topic at that time, and we hacked around. So they had a hackathon with a prize amount of $8,000. I know it's very little amount these days for a hackathon, because now we are distributing what, $50,000, something like that, for the winners, right? It was still a good decent amount 12 years back. And I'll tell you my story, like my mindset when I went into the hackathon. It's like one of my friends told me that, hey, instead of like we spending our work environment, why don't we go to this hackathon that's happening over the weekend here in Bangalore, and just try hacking something. And my first reaction was like, no, I'm definitely not going to go to that, because I know that I'm not going to win this hackathon. And there's no point, because I know there are other better people who are there in the industry for a longer time. They have better ideas than me. So I kind of denied it. But then he kind of requested, think about it. He said, worst case, we don't win anything, we just come back learning. um, and remember me like 12, 13 years back, right? Mostly like a college grad or coming out of the college grad. But I said, okay, let's do it. Let's go and see. So we didn't even have, like, we were two, me and my friend, we were two members, but we were like, yeah, we don't know anybody, like, so maybe we two are just part of the team, right? But then when we went there, networked with people, we found some more like-minded people, and we were like, I think four of us, or three of us, if I remember. I think three of us, one more, one of our own colleague joined us, so we made three members team. And then we thought through the ideas, and then we went and won that hackathon, actually. So really, so what I learned from that is having a right mindset is important. Like, it's okay that you have this inferiority in you, right? That you are not so good, or there are people better than you. It's okay to have that fear, right? But that shouldn't really stop you. It shouldn't stop you. So I would say, if you are an inferior person like me, go ahead and still like do it. And hackathons are marathon, not sprint, remember. So that's the first lesson that I learned, is like, when you are thinking about these 2 days where you are hacking or building something, it is not always like smaller sprints, right? It's a complete 2 days effort. So there will be ups and downs. Like, you will be basically doubting yourself every moment, and that is what happens. Like, every moment you'll be doubting, oh, I'm pretty sure there are people who are doing much better than me, or you're like, no, probably this is not the correct approach, right? It is okay, it is totally okay, that happens just as humans, right? It's See, the whole idea of hackathon in my mind should be learning and collaborating. Learning, like, okay, if there is this hackathon has certain tools that I need to use, your aim should be just, let's learn from this, and also learn how to collaborate with others. winning should be a byproduct. Don't look to win. That some people like to have that aim, but I think, in my personal opinion, what I've seen is winning shouldn't be your aim. If you are there to learn and collaborate, eventually you will see that you will do far better than you would have ever imagined. So that's the thing. It's like competing with yourself, right? It's not like competing with others. First you have to compete with yourself. You're like, okay, let me get through all these ups and downs and just do my best. That should be the mindset. And then become comfortable with ambiguity and improvisation. That is the key here. There will be ambiguity, like there will be things that you will doubt, and you will feel ambiguity about the situation here. There are things that you will experiment, and you're like, I have learned this from my blog, or I've seen this in video. But but let me tell you, like, once you're working on the field, you learn a lot more. Those things that you would have just conceptually learned, they no more matter that much, because hands-on experience is totally different experience. Like, you can read 10 books, but if you don't have that hands-on experience as engineers, we are very familiar with this concept. Is like, as long as we do the work, it's much more it's much more sticky with you, and it remains in your memory for long, and you learn a lot of things. So be comfortable with that ambiguity. There will be things that will break as a part of the journey. You'll go up and you'll go down. Your emotions will be up and down. Key is to improvise on it. Like, if you find something, how can you make this better, little better, little better. That's how that will be your journey. It's like making little better, and at one point you would have realized that you have accomplished so much that you would have not even aimed for it. So that should be the mindset, and this is very important, because I think having the right mindset there lowers your expectations. And also, because I know, some of my friends, they're like, let's go, my only goal is to go there and win this hackathon, right? They're so desperate for going and just winning it, right? That's type of mindset that you might have. But I think, in my opinion, having a balanced mindset just keeps you grounded always. And that is more important, because this, again, as I said, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Let's say in an hour you did a really excellent job, right? And in the last hour, when you had to produce the demo, you did a terrible job. You're going to lose it, right? Same thing, like, you might do really poor, right, across the thing, but in last 1 hour, like, if you really still do excellent job, you might still fall short. So you see, that is my point, is like, you will have ups and downs, and you need to manage them, balance it, just be grounded there. So that's the mindset. Moving on, pre-hackathon preparation. Now, this is very important. I learned from my first hackathon experience, is like, how much this actually puts you ahead of everyone. It's like, there are things that are really important. So when you're forming a team, make sure you form a balanced team if you can. That means, let's say you have someone who is really good at Apex, you have someone who is really good at design, you have someone who is really good at let's say, building demos. So if you have all the three skills in the group, you see, you are already ahead of a lot of people. It's just as simple, because you have specialized skills. So that is important. Like, form a balanced team when you're forming the team, if that's possible. Now, I know that a lot of times these are things are not under our control, but if you find, or if you're looking an effort to put into this hackathon, it's always better to find a balanced team. And then finalize your technology stack. Even before the hackathon, like, let's say the virtual hackathon that we had recently, we said you can build with Agentforce. Of course, Agentforce, you'll have to use data cloud. You can use Slack. And when you think about this, right, Agentforce is the agentic layer, but behind this there could be so many other things. Like, we all know Salesforce has so many other products. It has Revenue Cloud, it has CPQ, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, it has industries, it has Slack, it has Tableau, and you can use all of these as a part of the hackathon, right? What is important is for you to be, even before you begin your hackathon, just be clear on what you're going to choose when it comes to building solution. Just having the clear idea, even before you ideate, right? having the stack, like, okay, I'm going to use only these 4 stack for this particular thing, works really better than at the last moment trying to decide what you want to pick and choose here. Like, the hackathon is based on Agentforce, but then what are the other technology stack you want to use, right? Prepare your boilerplate code templates. Now, in the hackathon, and this is very important, is you should always have templates. Like, get started with Salesforce templates for Apex, probably. Maybe you have some templates for writing quick flows, or even some quick instructions, reusable instructions that you could use in Agentforce. So having that boilerplate code templates, again, it gives you that little edge over the things. And these things are completely ethical to have. Like, um, again, having fully baked the solution and then you go and present it in the hackathon, that's just non-ethical. But some things you can definitely do. And research about the platform that you're using, right? Like, I'm pretty sure if you have someone who is going to the hackathon and just learning Agentforce, they'll waste their probably like the first day just trying to do that, right? um, that I think that's still okay. Like, I wouldn't say this is bad, but if you are looking to like really do well and get some good brownie points, then I would probably research that platform, and all the aspects of it, like SDKs and APIs this has, beforehand, because you're there just to go build there, right? And then ideation, the next important part. So we saw 2 things, right? Getting the right mindset, and then the best part here was the pre-hackathon preparation tricks. And then ideation is very important. Now this is where you win or lose, basically. Like, if you have a very good solid idea, you definitely have chance to really do well. So how do we do the ideation, right? To me, what is important is when you're ideating, thinking in these 2 directions, like impact and the feasibility in given time. That is, if I create this solution, what impact does it have on on anything? Does it have an ROI? Like, the solution, is it usable? And then, is it feasible to produce the MVP in a given amount of time? So these 2 are very important when you're ideating to the ideas. Like, you might have an idea which is like super cool, but then you're not even able to get 10% of that idea in that 2 days. Then you're probably losing, right? Same way, if you have like a very fantastic idea, but then technically it's not possible, you're going to lose it again. So these 2 are very important. Can it provide the impact? Is it feasible in a given amount of time, right? And always when you're ideating, right, the thing to remember is come up with a story. That's your first problem. Like, come up with a story. What problem are you trying to solve here? You should have a clear picture of the problem that you're trying to solve. In fact, write it down. Like, what would be your story? And this is where, like, story writing is, again, it's one of those things that's not so easy. Like, you might have ideas in your head, no doubt, but how do you present that? Like, how do you create a story out of it is a skill in itself, and it requires a lot of thought process there. And I think when you're ideating, that is the time you need to build the story, because once you have the story, your solution basically follows that story. So it's about writing that story, convincing your team members, everyone, and aligning on that story is going to go long way. And then the impact of the outcome, basically. So here again, we know the impact. What will be the actual impact of the outcome, right? And if you could quantify those things, right, I think you have a really solid idea in your mind, and from there you are ready to execute on the project. So let's talk about execution, right? This is very important. Like, you might have, you have nailed down your idea, what you want to build, but you still got to execute on this, right? And execution is very, very key aspect, right? It's just building it. So what is important to understand in hackathon is always working MVP over like truly 100% projects is the way to go. Okay, now you might have if you have all the time in the world, maybe you can complete that project and build everything, build fancy stuff, fancy UI and a lot of logic and imagine the scenarios, etc., around that problem. But again, you need time for that. So really identifying, hey, what is this minimum viable product that I need to come up after completion of this is very critical. So, and remember that, if you have an MVP and if you can show the value of the solution, it's definitely going to get more brownie points. Like people would have like, done more work in 2 days than we would have imagined. Like sometimes also very easy to disqualify people actually, because some people like, they like within 2 days, if they're doing like 2 months of work, right, you quickly identify that, okay, this project is probably disqualified because they probably built this before, right? So it's really important to understand that, like, if you build MVPs, that project that you're building should definitely be something that is only worth 48 hours of work. If it's more than that, maybe a little more, but beyond that, like beyond imagination, if you have something, then there will be more questions for sure, because of reasons. And then assign clear roles when you're executing, right? Assign clear roles to your team members. Come through the strategy. This is very, very understood thing, right? Like every has their own skill sets. They have their own personality, and they know what they do best. So based on that, you can divide the work, and then keep your scope narrow. But remember that if somebody asks you to expand it, you can expand the scope. So that is very important. Do not have a longer scope or a deeper scope. Always keep it narrow and MVP specific. And then the last tip that I want to give you is use AI. This I can't stress more. If you're building UIs, right? Vibe code those UI. Ask Claude or ChatGPT to create these UIs for you. Use Cursor as your tools. Use Lovable or Bold. These are all totally out. If you want to come up with like lighting components, on the fly and prototype it, go ahead and use it. Build those prototypes. Really use AI tools as much as possible. That's totally fair game these days. And with that, right, like, okay, so now that you have executed on all of these, let's say you have built it. Now this is where I would say like the best projects that actually win, right? Till execution, I would say, everyone does it fair of good job. What really segregates the pros from like people who would have like marginally got less number of points than people who go and win is demos. Because demos, like how you present, definitely has a lot of value. This is where if your presentation is true, this is the first thing that your judges are going to look at. They're not going to look at code quality at the beginning itself. They're not going to look at your the way you have architected your solution, right? It's like your demo, because that's what you present to them. Once they look at the demo, they qualify, and then they want to look at other criteria, right? So that is very important. Like getting that, getting that attention of judges to, I'm impressed. Now I want to go look at other aspects of this project, is all through the demo. So let's see what to do in the demo. So the first tip I give is keep it short. Okay, keep it short, because the moment you have more content in there, in fact, I think we limit it. We say only 5 minutes these days. Like your demo should be within 5 minutes, right? So even if you say 5 minutes, aim to be less than that. Minutes. That's it, right? So keep it really short, clear, and crisp. No using bigger sentences, not using complicated words, right? And I'll show you. In fact, we'll do a little bit of walkthrough of the solution that she herself kind of built, and we'll go through that and see how we can fix certain things there to get more points. Like, what would the approach look like?
Mohith, can I request you not to present mine, please?
Okay, then we'll probably skip that part, and then I'll probably pick something random. Is that okay? Random from
Yes, third party presentations are okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go pick something which is like very, very random from our hacks, and I'll show you. Probably we might pick the winner. How about that? Let's pick the winner for the workshop, like who actually won, because we have all those
Be a
projects.
good idea because we'll get to know the do's,
Yeah.
and for the don'ts, you can just give the opposite of that.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. So aim to keep it under 4 minutes. Okay. So that is the first trick. The second trick is the structure. So how does the structure of your demo look like? First thing you need to do is problem. Okay. First, I would say 30 seconds, even less than that. I would say in 20 seconds, you should be able to present your problem really well. And then next 10 seconds, you make the problem evident. That means, you emphasize it so much that the judges in 30 seconds, they have clear idea of what problem you are trying to solve. Next, you present your solution. Like, okay, this is the problem. Look, this is the demo to solve it. So you present your solution, and your solution should be, again, not more than, I would say, 10-20 seconds of time. That's all you have. Like, think about it. 50 seconds, you're presenting your problem, and this is our solution. Demo, this is where it should take most and majority of your time, like showing those features and tying back to the problem and the solution. That is very important. Like you show, I built this because this solves this problem for this particular persona. That is very important. And we'll see how some of these winners are actually winning these hackathon and what is it that they have. And then tech stack. You take some time to just show your tech stack. That way the judges know that, okay, these are the solution components that they need to go review when they are looking for more depth in this solution. And then finally, maybe a minute or so in the end, you say the impact of this and your future vision of the solution. Okay, so this is the structure and the formula to present your demos really well. And only tip I can give you is avoid slides unless necessary. Show the product. That's what it's going to win. If you have lots of slides in your demos, that simply means you are just still prototyping. Okay, you have nothing built out. So that is very important. Same thing when you're presenting, right? If you don't show the demo in action, that simply means, and if you just screenshot and show the things, that's going to carry less points. It should be the live demo. And then ensure clear recording with good audio quality. Like I cannot believe this. Like I have seen solutions which are like really, really good, but they did not record it very clearly, or their audio quality was not that great, and they lost, gave up points like that, right? They had good idea, they executed really well, they also had a good demo, but because their recording was like hard to follow, you end up losing points, right? So how about I kind of show you? So let's see. Let's pick something. So Agentforce hackathon. So we had this virtual Agentforce hackathon recently, right? On the dev post, right? And we can view the winner. So this is the hackathon that we recently had, and you can see, we had 140K prizes. You can see we all judged together, a lot of people. Thanks to the judges, it's not an easy job. Especially we had like 7,000 submissions or something like that. Yeah, you see 7,000 participants. Sorry, we had like around 6,000 submissions or something like that. Anyway, so let's see the winners, right? And let's see what they were doing really well. Okay, so yeah, so let's see. So one of the, I mean, I like all of these projects actually, by the way, but let's see this call prep agent demo. Okay, so let's see. You all can hear the voice too, right, of computer or not?
No.
Okay, how do we how do I do that? How do I share the, or let's see, if somebody wants to like take control over the screen and play this, I can share the URL.
So share sound, yeah. Where is it?
It's a setting in the
Is there a setting? Let's see.
Not that's in Zoom, right?
yeah. That's
But this is Bevy. Yeah.
Let's see. How do we share? Let me stop sharing. Let me figure it out.
Are you playing the sound already? We didn't.
No, I'm figuring it out. Like how do I share my audio basically? Okay, let's see. There's a thing called, let's see. I wonder if you do it as a host.
Yeah. Okay. Can you send me and Krish?
It's there already in the chat.
Uh,
You just click on the link and play. That would do.
let me
Well,
check.
let's see.
Yeah. Let's see.
It apparently says you have to share it with the Chrome tab option.
Chrome
So if
tab
you share
option.
it,
Okay.
yeah, go to Chrome tab.
Okay, let's do that.
I have a link to the documentation.
Okay, just a Chrome tab. Okay, one sec. Just give me a sec. Let me bring that thing onto the Chrome tab and then share that. Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, there you go. Now you should be seeing that.
Okay, let's see if we can hear it.
Let's see if you can hear.
Hi all. Today I want to present
Yeah, it's working.
It's okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, let's see.
our call prep agent,
So by the way, this one won the best prize actually. So it'll be interesting to see how they did their demo.
which is an Agentforce for employees agent we're submitting for the hackathon. To set some context, we work in an increasingly virtual world. All of us can relate to the feeling of running from meeting to meeting, whether it be with customers or prospects or partners. Often we're invited to meetings with unfamiliar faces and sometimes not knowing what their background is or what perspective they come from. There's just never enough time to fully prepare. If you think about it, in a perfect world, it'd be great if we had an assistant who could essentially build a digital brief for us with photos and bios of each meeting attendee, and with the ability to get deeper research very easily. That's exactly the purpose of the call prep agent. The call prep agent on Agentforce runs on Agentforce, and what it can do is allow you to basically very simply ask the agent to help prepare for a specific meeting.
Okay, so did you see what they did in their first 1 minute? Okay, now I'll be honest. I think I rated this thing not so much to like go really win the solution, right? But again, it's because there are so many judges here and everything averages out. But I like how they use that first 1 minute. I would have even shortened it to 40 seconds here. 1 minute is too much here. But you see, the first thing that they started is explaining the problem statement. Okay. And that is how you need to start. You need to start and double click on the problem statement. Like first few minutes are always, what is the problem that you are trying to solve? Who are you trying to solve this for? And that I think they nailed that aspect. Only thing is, I think they spent too much time here, and you can see the video is 8 minutes. You know, we typical. I don't know if we had a hard rule for 5 minutes, but you can see how they use that first minute. But I would have gone a little more less than that, a little more crisp actually. Like when you're doing this, write it up. Do not just go and blabber and record it. You write it up, you refine it. In fact, you can use ChatGPT and all these tools today to do this. You refine it and make sure like those sentences that you are talking through, the first few sentences, they actually are very crisp and they really double click the problem very well. So it always needs to, you remember the structure that I shared. The first thing is problem statement. So let's see how they do the next part.
For example, I can ask it, hey, prep me for my QBA call on Tuesday. It's going to go scour my Google Calendar. It's going to then find all the attendees in that meeting, analyze that using a service called Apollo IO, which is what we use for prospecting. It's then going to summarize all of those profiles into a concise, easy to read bio, and then display all of that in a nice UI. And that's what I'm showing you here. I'm going to go into the live demo in a moment, but it's a rich UI that we've built into Agentforce that gives you a quick synopsis of meetings, whether it's a single meeting or multiple meetings. And you can see the bio right there and the profile pic of each of the attendees. We even have a link to their location that takes you into a Google search of that location, so you can get some quick info on where they are. Definitely helps with conversation starter. So that's sort of the first step, right? We can ask about a meeting or a collection of meetings and start to get some intel on who's coming to our meeting. The next step is we can dive a lot deeper. We can ask to do a deeper research on any of those attendees, or we can ask very targeted, like search LinkedIn or search the web for XYZ. And there we're leveraging additional services on the internet. We're using a service that has deeper LinkedIn bio information and recent posts and activities. We're using a service called Nubella Proxy Curl. That's an API integration with our agent. We're also scouring call logs on the contact record in Salesforce, and we're also doing deep research via the Perplexity API. So all of that comes back when you ask for deeper research. You've got detailed breakdown of the attendee's profile. We have a quick interaction summary here, and then you've got web search as well via Perplexity with citations. Now we can take it even one step further. Because we're busy, we want to move on to other things. We don't want to lose that conversation. We don't want to lose all of that context and research that we've done. So we want to be able to take that out of Agentforce and into a document that will live on, that we can collaborate on with our teammates and help prepare for a critical meeting. So that's what this last step really does. Build me a briefing document for this meeting. That's going to generate a document in Google Docs, leveraging the Google Drive and Google Docs API. And it's essentially saving all of that context, including all of the deep research that was performed through the agentic conversation. So now let me head over to.
Okay, so that was the second part. I think it was lengthy again, but that at least they are doing what was expected actually. So first they laid out the problem statement. The next thing that they did was solution. Like how did they solution this? So a little bit about sharing their architecture at high level. What are the systems involved? And how they have approached along with features. So one of the things that you saw in this explanation was it's not just about telling, okay, we have these systems that we are using it, or the agent is using. It's more about connecting that to the features that they have built, right? So if you look at the three things that he talked about, they're talking not only through the architecture, but at the same time showing the features. You see these things, you see these citations is because of this XYZ, right? So I think that is very important, is to be able to go there and then talk through your system architecture, at the same time convey the features that you have in the app. So that way it is very clear for the next section when you actually go demo, because you already have knowledge, or you have given that knowledge to the judge saying, okay, these are like different features that are there in my app, and this is how my solution works. Any questions up to this point?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
So their solution utilized technologies outside of Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
And what my question is, so I'm a rookie trying to learn Agentforce and this whole new AI methodology.
Yeah.
So how do you learn all these other resources that are available out there? What is your recommendation?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and thank you for the question. Like, how do you learn about other things that are happening in the technology? Now, I would say everybody has their own preferences. I can just tell you how I learn things as well. Like, I know, you might be focused on only one product, right? Agentforce and Salesforce aspect of it. I think it is very important for everyone to know, be someone who has generalized knowledge and not just specific knowledge about certain things. Like, it's good to deep dive into something and have that as a skill set, but you should be a person who are more general, like, the general stuff. And how I actually learn about all these things is there are multiple ways I do it. One way I have done is by following people on the social media, and this is very interesting way to learn. So what I've done is in my Twitter, like if you go see my Twitter account, I am following all those people that I know are posting some really good content about AI. Like, for example, if it's agents, right? These days, like from last 2 years, there's been a lot of revolution here. First it was copilots and agents and RAG. There's so many new stuff that's happening now. MCPs, a lot of new terms that come out. And really the way I'm learning these days is I have converted my social media accounts like LinkedIn and Twitter into an engine that can generate content for me. So let's say, I'm on a phone and just, simply scroll through my phone for like 10-15 minutes. I'm just getting all these content that these amazing influencers are posting in a bite-sized way. That's one way to learn, where I have, basically I'm using the recommendation engine and the AI that is there in these social media sites these days. So that's one way to learn. The other way to learn is, also reading some books related to the subject. Books are very valuable in my opinion. And the third way I learn is just curiosity. Like, for example, I didn't know anything about MCPs, and I quickly realized that this is going to change a lot of things because every single company is building MCPs. Now, if I want to learn something, I'll just go to, let's say, Gemini or ChatGPT and start asking everything like, hey, tell me what is MCP, use the internet search basically within that Gemini. And then I start, asking. And in fact, what I'm doing these days is, taking all these things and putting into Notebook LLM. That's like Gemini's Notebook LLM, and generating podcasts. So, if I'm like driving or dropping my kid to the school, I can just listen to it. Or let's say I'm driving to a grocery, maybe I'll just listen to some things like this, right? So things like that. So yeah, it really depends on you, but I think you need to have that knowledge at this point. My personal opinion is if you're operating at certain level, you should at least go one level deeper into the subject. And again, I think the best way to learn is also look at what others are doing. At least in my role at Salesforce, I definitely go look at what Google is doing, what Microsoft is doing, what these OpenAI or Anthropic are building with these agents, because agents are something that everyone is building these days. I'm just more curious about how they are building and what is available, right? So that's another way to explore. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on and I'll pause again for people. So just to iterate, right? Now they want to get into the demo. So let's see how they demo this solution.
Next, including all of the deep research that was performed through the agentic conversation. So now let me head over to the live agent. We're going to go ahead and start the agent, and we're going to start with a very simple prompt. I could just say call prep, and it'll get me the latest, most recent meeting that I'm a part of, but I'm going to be a little more targeted here and say, help me prep for my upcoming Plative CCMG QBA call on Tuesday.
So I'll pause for a sec here and tell you something that they did really right here. If you look at the way they are demoing this, it feels like a live demo. It's not videoed, or when I say videoed, not using video editing tools a lot. And when you see, the presenter here, he's typing all these things, and he's not putting it as a keyboard shortcut or something, where he just pasted the prompt. So it almost felt like natural, and that is important actually. When you're demoing, it should really feel like, okay, this is a real solution, rather than just something that has been mocked up or edited or faked using some video editing tool. So that is really important. So when he's demoing it, as you can see, right, he really typed within his keyboard, and then we can see what he's doing here.
So that's right now in real time going out. The agent is going out and querying my Google Calendar through the Google Calendar API, retrieving multiple meetings and attendee context for those meetings, and trying to pinpoint the plaintiff CCMG QBA call that's coming up on Tuesday. And it's also not just done that, it's also summarized a bio for each of those attendees. So you can see this particular meeting is coming up. I have a profile picture of each of the attendees, and I also have their
so I just want to pause here and say they're doing something different. Like when somebody looks for some sort of innovation, imagine if this was not formatted really well and it was just plain text. It would have probably not impressed a lot, between a lot of judges here, right? I'm pretty sure the judges looked at this and they said, oh, wow, I like the way they formatted this whole thing. They have their pictures coming. So there is definitely a little bit of innovations, as you can see how they are formatting their output. And that kind of differentiates them from other submissions right away.
Quick synopsis based on their work experience and what they do, both on the Apollo API as well as LinkedIn. I also have, like I said, a conversation starter often. Like we can see where people are and click through on that. It even launches a Google search for that location, which is very helpful, especially for small talk and such. Now, let's say I want to dive deeper. Really want to know more about Matt. So we can just say, get me more details on Matt. Because it's natural language, I don't have to say Matthew Gordon. I can just say Matt, and it understands the context, and it knows it needs to dive deeper into this specific individual on this specific meeting. So now what it's doing is going out and hitting the Perplexity API, hitting the New Proxy Curl API to fetch LinkedIn data. It's also querying the contact record and finding all the interaction logs for that contact. So here's the result of the LinkedIn deep dive. Here's the result of looking at the interaction logs on the contact record. And here's whatever it could find.
So let me pause here for a sec and tell you some other thing, which will definitely give a brownie point here. So if you look at, it's actually filling one of the gaps that we have in the product, which is citations. Citations is a feature that is coming soon. You'll be able to, get citations in your Agentforce responses when it's getting information from knowledge article, etc. It's a feature that's still coming. But what you see is they have sort of added that here using, maybe they use the Perplexity API to get these citations, etc. But you see, they still have that feature in here. So it's not just, it's extending the platform, and that definitely gives a brownie point here, according to me.
Find on the web around recent news and announcements for Matt. Now I can go even further. Let's look beyond Matt. Let's find, can you search the web and tell me if Matt works for CCMG, if Clark Capital CCMG has been in the news lately. So again, leveraging the Perplexity API, I'm diving a bit deeper. I'm learning about Matt. I'm learning about all the attendees for this meeting. And now I'm able to also get some more intel on the company itself and what it's been doing, how it's been in the news of late. And last but not least, let's save all my research to a doc. And again, it's natural language. In many ways, I could have said that, but essentially what it's doing now, it's gathering up all of that information that we got around this QBA call, that business alignment call that I've got coming up on Tuesday, and it's generating a Google Doc, leveraging the Google Drive API and the Google Docs API. And here it is.
I didn't understand.
Here's the document that it generated. It's my pre-briefing for this meeting coming up on Tuesday. It's got the details for each of the individuals, well, inclusive of the deeper research that we gathered on both Matt and CCMG as a company. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy.
All right.
Hi all.
So let's stop here, right? So let's think through this, right? So as you can see, right, one of the things that really stood out in that solution was everything that they demoed was truly like live, right? There's no video editing, there's no cuts, just entering the prompts, showing the results. And that adds a lot of value, actually, in my opinion. Is like, if you're like showing a demo, right, it should feel like real. At least that first pass where we just look at a solution and say, okay, this makes it to the next round. This definitely qualifies for that. Any other comments from anyone that you want to ask me?
I think Lakshmi and Andres Perez had a lot of good comments to add. So, and Lakshmi had some questions. Lakshmi, would you want to open your mic and ask questions?
Got it. I'm on my Friday from Melbourne. So my question would be, do we really need to have a desired level of complexity, or can I just take any use case which I feel like, okay, I can address this with the use of agent, and I can start building? Of course, there will be a failure, but still, can I just go with that? Not with respect to hackathon, but
Yeah, definitely. Any level of complexity for an agent, like there's no desired level that we look for here. If it solves a problem, if it solves a business, need not be hackathon, but anywhere, right? Like if you think that your solution is gonna give value to your users and gonna make their lives easier, you should just go for it. It's as simple as that.
right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mo.
So Mo, my question is when he was writing this prompt, he said search the web. So is that a product of Agentforce, or is that one of his other products that he's allowed to search the web?
Yeah, so he said he's using the Perplexity's API. Now, Perplexity is a solution like Google that searches through the web, and he's just making use of it. We have the web feature too coming in Agentforce for sure. But to your point, again, if you can show the value of the platform in these hackathons and show it can be extended also through different means, if you would have shown this solution, let's say on Google's Gemini chat, or maybe on Claude's desktop, we would have disqualified this, right? It's nice that he's staying still on Salesforce platform and showing how to build all these things. Maybe they would have to use external things, like for example here in this case, maybe an API here and there, like querying LinkedIn or other APIs. But these are good, like they are just extensions. He's using Apex actions to do all these things. So we don't look at for like, there's no brownie points here for making use of like native solution. I'm pretty sure like if you use native solution and if you're able to accomplish your goal, definitely it will be judged and you'll be given really nice points. But I think there is not a lot of problem even if you go beyond that, and if you use solutions like the rules clearly say you can use a publicly documented APIs or SDKs. So, and this is something we discussed it actually. I mean, once this was like finalized and we had to again go through another discussion that was it fair, to give this. And then we looked at the rules ourselves, and the rules clearly said you can use anything that is publicly documented, like any API that is available public. Now, if he would have built his own API or used his own internal company's API, then probably would have disqualified. But as long as it's a publicly available API, I think we just allow that.
I have a question
Thank
for
you.
Yeah.
So say is there any bonus points for like incorporating Slack as a user interface, or like other products like Heroku, hosting an application on Heroku, like using multiple Salesforce products at once? Or
Yes, there is brownie points for that. Yeah, so I think we also specifically said that, I mean, Slack is obvious, because Slack, they gave a different, like, Slack was there, and a best category in the Slack app actually won. So Slack, Data Cloud, Heroku, I don't think we have a specific category, but yeah, if you're using Heroku's and Salesforce products, definitely feel free to use. They all have brownie points. Will definitely give more preference to those kind of solutions. Slack, I think they awarded the best category. There was a prize specifically dedicated for that, like best use of Slack. And then we also had a prize for best use of Data Cloud. I think we honorable mentions. And in future, and this is something that we are also doing now, is in future we'll have hackathons where we will definitely have like best use of Data Cloud, like given prize for best use of Data Cloud. Like we are now focused on Data Cloud, and we definitely want hackathon participants to use Data Cloud, show the use cases. I think our point system will definitely change in the future, geared towards that. So definitely feel free to use Data Cloud and all the solution, all the capabilities it has in your solution.
And is there any like preference to internal use case versus like a external use case, because
No.
it's like internal business versus?
No, nothing like that, actually. I mean, I think only thing, as I said, like only criteria that we look for is innovation. Is there an innovation, right? Is there a new thing that is there in the solution that is hard to imagine, or something that is creative, right? So innovation, creativity, these are two things that we look at. And then we look at the scalability of the solution and the usefulness. Most importantly, the impact. Like this solution, like the best part about this solution that I liked was it's immediately impactful. Like I cannot disqualify this as saying this is useless, right? This is immediately impactful. It has the business value there. It definitely giving business value to the user. So that's all we look for, whether it's external users or for internal employees that are using these agents. It doesn't matter, as long as it's giving that experience to the customers and having that business value linked to it, a business use case. So that's why your ideation phase, as I told, create a story and think about the impact that your solution is going to have. As you figure that out and you come up with that becomes key, actually, because then you're like, okay, this solution has impact, then that's all it matters. So how you can impact your users, that in fact your ideation should be in that strategy. The strategy should be very simple. It's like, think about the user and see how you are making their lives easier, or at least helping them in augmenting with the AI really well. If you improve their workflow, get their confidence and efficiency, your solution definitely has value. So that's all we look at. Any other question?
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I noticed was most of their demo was after 5 minutes, like
Yeah.
citations and also the everything, like whatever impact they seem to show of their the work was after 5 minutes. So, and they said that they wouldn't be counting anything after 5 minutes. And
I don't know if for this virtual hackathon we had that 5 minutes
yes,
limit.
it was
Did we
there.
have that? Did we have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see the rules, that was one of the first things.
Yeah, again, as I said, I'm not the only judge, right? But if I'm pretty sure I would have I have detected the points, but this is a combination of a lot of judges, right? But definitely that is one of the things I didn't like about this solution. Is it really took beyond 5 minutes, right? Like 6 minutes is okay, 7. Probably if it was 10 minutes, I think we would have disqualified it. But maybe it's in that border of 8 minutes. But this solution to show within 5 minutes would have been definitely possible. Like if you look at, they took 4 minutes in explaining what it is. They could easily cut this back to 2 minutes. If I was the presenter, I would have cut that and just used 2 minutes and then 3 minutes for my demo. But again, everybody has their own, I would say, perspective on it. I think we should hard look at this rule. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think overall, the solution to me was more impactful, and I think that is what kind of give them more points than the others.
Certainly, the solution was amazing, but the rules are rules, right? Like others could have used more time and looked more impactful too. Andres, you raised hands.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of add a little bit to that. So I've been a judge for I wasn't a judge for the virtual hackathon, but I've been participating in other hackathons. I was in the San Francisco one, TDX, and then I went to the one in India, so in person. And the judges are, let's say, required to watch the first 5 minutes. If they don't get any interest after 5 minutes, then they don't have to keep watching the video. I guess at this point, this video, because of the way that they format the responses, maybe some of the judges were interested in going a little bit farther than 5 minutes. But if you have a very boring 5 minutes and then everything happens on minute 10 and later, your judges are not gonna watch it. So it's definitely something that you have to keep into consideration.
Yeah, that's a great point.
For 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andre. And actually, I went and looked back the rules here. I'm pretty sure we would have disqualified if it was not following these rules. But if you look at the rules, Shiba here, it says should be less than 5 minutes. No, judges are not required to watch beyond 5 minutes. So that, again, to the Andres point here, right? We recommend that it should be less than 5 minutes, but it's up to the judges to say, if they really want to watch it or not. So there's a little bit of ambiguity there. Like it's not hard 5 minute stop.
They're not disqualified because it doesn't say must be less than 5. It says should be less than 5.
Yeah.
So it's not an automatic disqualification.
Yes. I'm pretty sure the coordinators would have disqualified it if it was not pertaining to the rules.
Yeah, they were grand prize winners.
Yeah, exactly.
Grand prize.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely would have looked into all the aspects of these rules because these are like serious rules here. But yeah, as I mean,
I felt it was like a simple. They picked up a simple use case of just meeting, and again, like just made it look impressive and very
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a simple thing which we all use our AI tools to summarize meetings, to know about the participants, everything. Like all those things are the first use cases of AI.
Yes. So again, as I said, see, it need like fancy thing might win, simple thing might win. That is okay. Most importantly, what they look for is impact, like the business impact, right? This, like, for example, if you look at CRM use case, if customers are using Salesforce as CRM, right, being able to prep for their meeting using Agentforce is definitely impactful, right? They don't have to go to ChatGPT to do this or Gemini to do this, and all of the information is already within Salesforce, right? So yeah, why not? Like yeah, it made sense for a business use case, so that's why they might have got more points on different parameters here. But again, my point is like there are so many different parameters here that this is all judged on. So imagine if everything has to align basically, so even if you like have a really complex idea, if you don't present it really well, you're kind of losing it, because the competition is very neck to neck here. Like, see, there is a difference between 4 and 5 here, right? The judges can rate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's what I was telling people is like, can we vote 4.75? Can we give 4.5? No, there is no 4.5 and 4.75. It's either 4 or 5. So you see the margin there is like really the skies has to align right, for people to win also. That's the factor that is there. But again, the margin between losing and winning is very, very tiny here. And if you do really well on all of the parameters, then you're probably winning it anyways. So but the core is, again, the point is, see, again, as I said, like your mindset should not be to win, but to address all those areas and do it in a manner that is easier. Like, for example, as I told, like the framework that I use is present your problem in a simplified way, show your solution, present your demo as if it's a real demo, right? Not like edited video, and then say the impact in last minute or so. That's it. As long as you do that, your demos are really shiny, and then your idea is well put together. And that's it. So yeah, that's important, is to have good metric on all of them. So that's how these things get evaluated. Anyways, hopefully this was useful.
I had a quick question, right? So I like the demo, which you basically you type it, but
Yeah.
everything takes time. So basically, hey, you lose the 5 seconds there because you're trying to focus on the 5-minute stuff.
Yeah.
That's one thing, right? So basically, it looks nice, and again, taking a chance because I didn't see the rules like carefully, but when you see the rules, that's the one thing, right? That comes up, right? So to the people, right? So
No, so let's talk about that point. Actually, that's a great point. Is the way I would have done, like I looked at some of the other things, and some of these solutions might be complex too. And as to your point, like some presenting in a 5-minute video might be tricky. I would at least show one live impactful case just like that, so it gives that impact. And then for the remaining ones, maybe there are some cut shots that I take, right?
right.
But the important thing is to present these features step by step and then tie back to the business value. That's the key.
Yeah, another question on the business value or ROI kind of thing. Now, you're looking at so many different like use cases, right? So how do I see, like, I like the use case which they want. So it's not like, hey, did not do a good job, but how do I compare what value, like there's no dollar term value, right? Kind of thing,
Yeah.
kind of metric there, right? How do you compare this to another one or to another one, right? Kind of solutions which are out there. And how do you give more brownie points? Like, because your personal use case might be because you might have fixed that situation, like judge one might have, hey, I think so this one looks very cool. This is a cool stuff to have, right? But somebody else might say, hey, it's a good one, but I do not know. Makes good use. So how do you kind of keep a balance over there, and how would you judge?
Yeah.
I know there are multiple judges, everything gets balanced out, but
yeah. So the way the judging happens is very sequential. That means you are not thinking about other solution or comparing to the other solution at all. It's very sequential and independently sort of judged, right? So when I'm looking at one thing, I don't have to compare with another. I think it becomes more complex when you try to compare it that way, right? So we just look at on these 5 metrics, right? The innovation, is there an innovation? Is this solution creative enough? Other parameters, of course, there are 5 different parameters there. So we look at it and then say, okay, out of 5, if I had to give this 5 out of 5, or 5 out of 4, how much, this thing is, right? So the business value is also one area, one aspect of it, right? And as long as it sticks, usually judges are like 5 or 4, right? But then again, we don't compare that to say, okay, this has more impactful or this has more. My idea was, or my point was, as long as you are showing that it has a business impact, you are getting 4 or 5 there.
okay,
right?
that's what I look at that, right? Okay.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So with that, I'll move on because we have another piece of content here to show. So let's actually move on. Let me share my screen. Share our entire screen now and go here. Okay, you all can see the screen here.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's go back to the first slide. Okay, so now we're gonna talk Agentforce. Now that you all have been building Agentforce, and I'm gonna assume everybody has built Agentforce and have sort of worked on this quite some time, either as a part of hackathon or just watching one of our videos, or maybe played around with Trailhead orgs. I'm gonna assume that. Now, if you have not done it, probably some of the concepts might fly over your head, but it will be good reference still. So before I begin, some forward-looking statements, because there are some features that I might disclose because of my conversation with the product teams. So you should make your purchasing decisions based on features that are there currently in the Agentforce. So let's talk about it, right? What are some of the best practices? And what is like those implementation tips that we are seeing customers sort of implementing, how they are getting value out of this tool, right? So first thing is, before even we get into like these best practices, let's start with like how Agentforce works, because once you understand clearly how it works, it becomes a lot more easier to reason out why certain things are not working this way and how you can like fix certain things on your own. So really the heart of all these things is the reasoning engine of Agentforce. So the reasoning engine, in short, is nothing but a software layer on top of LLMs, large language models, that our engineering team and our research team has built at Salesforce. So what is the reasoning engine, right? In short, it is, as I said, you have these large language models, and these large language models are you would have already used in ChatGPT, etc. But these large language models, as you know, they can give you text. They can plan for you in the form of text, but they cannot take any action. Like, for example, if I say, hey, send an email to XYZ, large language model will come up with the text for that email, but it cannot send that email because they simply cannot do any action, right? So they can reason for some task. Maybe they are not able to reason because they need more data and more context to reason it out. So they need connection to the software systems like knowledge bases, databases, and all these things. And also they need to be able to take action. So again, you need connection to the software. So that is reasoning engine, basically, which is connecting the software and the large language model. So this is our core, the reasoning engine. And how it works in Agentforce is, the moment the agent is invoked, right, when you give a prompt, right, to an agent, what happens is, first we classify based on the topic. So the way you build these agents today is, and a lot of you would have already built, like, you build your topics. Topics are generally the jobs to be done, and then every topic has different actions, like this diagram, right? Every topic has actions. In fact, I should have put this slide first before the reasoning engine, but anyways, I'll fix that. But you should have topics, and in the topic you'll provide the descriptions, you'll provide the scope of the topic, then you have actions, then you provide instructions. Actions are flows, apex, and you have n number of topics, etc. So the first step that the engine does is it classifies the topic. It says, okay, based on this request or based on this prompt, the intent of this customer is to do this. So it goes and chooses that topic. So once it chooses that topic, it uses the scope, which again is a natural language description, scope, and all the instructions that are there and the actions that are there. And then it sends to the reasoning engine to say, okay, based on all of this, pick up all the actions that are there and decide which actions to run. So it runs, and then it reacts. Like, this is all React based. That means, it goes to the action and then lets user absorb that action, and the user can provide feedback or provide more prompts. And then again, the loop happens. I'll keep on doing it till all the actions are exhausted. And then finally, it will send all the information to the large language model, the model that sends a response. And then, based on that, the whole thing continues, right? That is how this reasoning engine works. It's basically you bridge large language model with, as I said, with software. So everything can be orchestrated by the reasoning engine, and then it executes these actions one by one. So that's how it works. So as you can see here, right, a lot of things can go wrong. For example, if you don't write the topic classification instruction really well, what will really happen is the right topics will not be chosen, and then again the user will not get the correct response, or correct action will not fire, and then you're losing value out of this tool. Same thing can happen if your instructions for actions are incorrect, because again if something is incorrect, right, the system will go in a different loop altogether. So that's why it is very critical to understand how to write these instructions and actions, and instructions for topics, actions, instructions for action inputs, how to write scopes. So all of this becomes really important, because you have to write it and test it. So your software development lifecycle here is pretty different than the regular software development lifecycle. Really, all you do in different, like in your current software development lifecycle, let's say I'm building an Apex or a flow, it's pretty deterministic. I know that 100% of the times, if I write logic correctly, it will work and behave the same like forever, right? So this thing pretty well. So you design the system, like you create the code, and then you write the test class, you test it out, and you're done, right? Very simple. Here it changes differently, because you have like that these business logic can execute really well. They are deterministic if you write it in flows and Apex, but then there is non-determinism too in terms of planning, because they're using all these instructions to plan, and that can go sideways here. So your job is constant, like here in this case, right? You're writing these instructions one by one, you're testing it, whether your agents are doing the work that you expect to. Yeah, they're firing the actions, they're orchestrating the actions correct. You're tweaking it until you kind of test it out with testing center. So we have testing center to test it out, and you evaluate, okay, 10 out of times, let's say 10 out of times, this is doing things correctly. That means, okay, 10 out of 10 it's doing correct. So this is okay, the system behaves as you want. Let's say 10 out of times, only 5 times it's giving accurate results, 5 times it's not. That means more prompting. It requires more prompting. You go fix it again. So you keep on doing it. And what happens is you also analyze afterwards. Like if, once your user starts using this system, because they can use it in different ways, you again analyze from that, those feedback, saying, okay, these are the actions or topics that are most used. These are not used. So where exactly this is failing? And you come back and again tweak this instruction. And this keeps on going. And that is why this is very iterative process. Actually, it's one of those things where it will constantly get updated. You'll constantly update your instructions. It's not one of those systems where like you design it and you are like, okay, now the system can run for some time, right? The whole agentic thing here is learning and then adapting. And also the system also has some adaptability that will come later. But that is how today it works, is like you have to keep tweaking it, writing instructions. So let's go ahead and look at, what are some of the best practices for writing. And one area that I want to highlight is you now have filters, in Agentforce. And that's one of the features that I have seen very less people use it, actually. Filters actually make your Agentforce more deterministic. So sometimes if you want deterministic behavior, that is the way to go. You put filters, deterministic filters in your solution, so that your agents operate deterministically. And instructions are interpreted by LLM. They are non-deterministic, right? So really having a filter, what it allows you to do is, so you have this non-deterministic space, but then you want to bring some determinism within that for some very critical business processes, right? So that is where the filters kind of help. So it's really important to use filters, understand how kind of filters and instructions differ. And this is one of the features that are currently there in Agentforce that you should all use to make your agents more deterministic. If you're on a customer agent, right, you really want your agent to be more accurate at that time. And that's where these filters come very handy. And then I want to go through topic classification best practices, right? Topic classification, again, as I said, is fundamental. Like that's the first step. So include different ways your customer might ask for this type of help. That is definitely important here when you're writing your description. Keywords, phrases that your customers typically use, and that is where business analysts are more valuable these days, because they know what these users are thinking, how they kind of converse with the system really well. And sometimes you need user interviews to also happen before you kind of design these things, because they are going to use it in a way they understand the business process. They're going to use those keywords, use those phrases that is relevant to the work that they do, right? So it's very important to understand that, and that should go in your topic classification best practices. And then cover the full range of questions the topic should handle, right? It shouldn't be ambiguous, right? You clearly need, like, okay, what are this range of things this topics can do? Topics are nothing but jobs to be done, right? So you need the full range of questions. And then write it in natural language, not technical terms. This is very important for classification, because LLMs are using it to classify your stuff. So this is all LLM magic here. So it will not understand if you use technical terms, because how LLMs work, they work based on the trained data that is there on the internet. That data that they are trained on, that is what they know, that is what they have understood. And your business term is something that they are not familiar with it, right? So that is why it is very important to write it in a language that they are familiar more, right? So if there is a technical term, do not use, but if there is a natural language term for that, use it. And then make it distinct from other topics description. This is very important. Like if you have two topics named that are little different but the descriptions are same, again, the large language models is gonna have problems with it to figure it out, because it's ambiguous. And we actually make it more easier now. There is this pencil icon that you will see on when you're writing these descriptions, where you can click and it will run through a prompt, and the AI will itself tell whether you already have like identical topic descriptions. We have started detecting this, so we tell so that you don't make that error. Any questions on this, like classification best practices? This is like fundamentals, right, to get the classification descriptions correct.
Anyone? Krish, Andres, you want to discuss something more on this?
I do actually have a question on the previous slide on the chart that you showed. No, the chart that you show for the agent, the Atlas. Oh my God, it's late. I'm tired. It's 10 p.m. right here.
Yeah.
When you say number 5, that is gonna loop, are you talking about in case you have more than one action within the same instruction? Because something I've noticed, and I don't, this is probably not drawn here, probably missing a couple of lines, is that an action may need to call within the same agent another instruction in a different topic, right? Because an agent can have multiple topics. So topic A, instruction 1, I need something from topic B, but I don't see where, I don't exactly understand your loop on the number 6. Exactly what is that looping? Is it going back to number 2? Is it going back to number 3? Is it going back to number 4? What happens after 6? Does it jump to 7? That picture is it's a good picture. It makes a lot of sense, but not when you
I
go
think
a little bit
so.
far.
Okay, yeah, I think it is the. I think the loop. You're right. Actually, we need to fix this thing. Actually, so the loop here is basically the action execution, right? This is the loop of the action execution and the observation here.
Yes,
I don't think it's the loop of the topic classification.
exactly. So there may be actually maybe probably more than one loop actually, because yes, if you say in order to find this answer, do 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's the loop you're doing there. Well, that kind of makes sense, and that's probably what's being represented here.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more. It could be a little bit more when you go different different instructions and maybe even different topics. It's
yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah, I get that point. Yes,
Okay,
that
cool.
might be that. It's like you can go back to. Definitely, you can go back based on the observation. You're like, oh, now we're gonna shift the topic here, right? It's like based on the observation, it could be like, yeah, this is definitely not something that we wanted, and the agent goes and then goes back to the same topic, and then comes back.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go here and then let's look at the scope. Now, scope is very important. So scope is basically, so if you look at this diagram.
I had a question too.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. For the one for the filters, I was just wondering, so like the filters, is it after the response to the LLM provider or is it before?
Yeah, so
and how's-
filters, okay, so there are different types of filters that are there, like topic level filter is there, and also you can put filters on the action level too. Okay, so I think we do have a more detailed guide that I can send you on how these filters do. If it is on the topic level, right, they are, even before we send, so as I said, they operate, so they modify the available decision space. That means what they do is, even before it is sent to LLM, actually they will filter out the topics, based on the criteria, and it is deterministic action, right? So let's imagine that you have a topic for a customer verification, and then you have a topic for, let's say, order management, and you have a filter that says, the order management topic, for example, should only happen after the customer verification thing happens, right? So we could easily do that. Like we could easily do that with filters, because what you can do is we can put a filter on that customer order management right there and say that only when the customer verified thing is true, right, then only execute it. So what happens in this case is, let's say, the customer is not verified. So the first thing that the agent is going to go ahead and do is do that customer verification topic, because it is not even seeing that other topics in the space. Okay. If you consider the whole space of topics, that topic is invisible at this point, because there is a server-side filtering that has happened. So I can send more information on this, but
and this is with the same agent. So say if I have one agent with like 15 topics or things, so I can put a filter and then surface that to a UI with a filter on it. So it's like kind of like a specific agent for a thing. Because say if I only want it to, I'm using a same agent over multiple sites, Experience Cloud sites, and I want only certain actions to be performed on certain sites. Could I use a filter for that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely you can put filters. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
If they are different, Krish, if they're different agents altogether, I probably suggest you separate those, because you can actually reuse the topics.
Yeah.
So an agent is just a container. With the magic happens on the topic, but the topic is a different thing. I don't know if you've experimented with the metadata yet. So you can bring a topic, two different topics, right? Two different agents. So if they're different, yes. But if they're similar, then yeah, definitely filters.
Yeah. And think about different scenarios within the same Experience Cloud. Let's say you have an Experience Cloud, maybe you have 5 different pages, that user navigate to. And let's say on specific page, maybe you want only specific actions to happen. Those type of scenarios basically will fit really well with filters. It improves the accuracy for sure, because now see, one of the things to design, think of designing these, is LLMs have context window limit. Okay, that means you cannot infinitely send a lot of, like, a very big prompt to an LLM. LLMs, they do really horrible. They don't understand if you keep increasing your prompt length. Okay, and this is all prompting, by the way. What is happening behind the scenes is taking all these instructions, creating that prompt, right? And then executing that prompt against the LLM, coming back to Salesforce, doing the action, and then sending the result back to LLM. And again, it's all prompting that is happening. So now the idea is, if you send a lot of information, right? Like let's say you have 40 topics. Okay, let's imagine this 40 topics. Like when you have 40 topics for an agent, you will see that agent is going to horribly perform. Okay, and this is very known fact. Same thing will happen if you have a topic and if it has 15 actions, it's going to horribly perform. So there is this limit that you need to look for, right? How many actions? So you should ideally restrict the number of topics. You should also restrict number of actions within. And I think we have documented this in the Agentforce guide that recently came back, like restrict to 10 to 12 actions. That's it per topic.
And also,
then,
I just wanted to ask one more question. Was filters, like, when was this released? Because
it's already there in your orgs. It's been a month now.
Okay, so it was released a month ago, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that the idea with the filters is to again, give you something that deterministically we can filter it out. So that way, you're not dealing with a lot of topics. Like LLMs are not dealing with all these topics and their descriptions. They're not getting confused basically with a lot of things, right? That's the idea with these, and also control which topic should come first, which should go next, etc., etc. There's a neat little blog actually. There are a couple of blogs that we wrote on this. I would highly encourage you to go look at it. One of my favorite blogs was that came out on. Let me show you this blog, where it showed how to use variables as an agentic memory. This is a really nice blog. Here, it kind of shows how you can, and it's pretty intense read, but once you kind of understand, we try to simplify it a lot, but when you try to understand this, really what it's doing here is you are deterministically able to control, okay, which topic should be looked at first, which should be looked at second, etc. Some prompt like this kind of helps, solve this, and then you're allowed one step at a time, so you can sequence actions, etc. Take a look at this. Let me know if
that's really cool.
It's pretty cool actually when you're having some step-by-step problems, because now you're like, okay, you can follow along, and you know where to choose which filters, etc. Filters are really cool features actually. It's
So
one of those.
is this a filter? Because I don't see filter.
Yeah, a filter looks like this. You see.
Okay, yeah, but it would be like basically it's a variable that
Yeah,
you're
filters
storing
are
the
basically
previous.
filters are basically created from variables.
Okay.
So first thing you do is create variables. So what variables are? They are a structured memory within your conversation. Like let's say you have 5 different actions, and each of the actions have a dependency on something. Like for example, when the customer verification happens, maybe you want to store that information, that verification has happened. So you create a Boolean variable saying, hey,
Right.
it's verified. And now you want to pass that is verified to another action, right? So that action knows that, okay, this is verification thing has happened, right? Or you are having an action where you got the customer ID, and now you want to pass that customer ID to the next action. So typically what you did, and also what I did before the filters came in, was just write natural language instructions, okay? Saying, hey, when you are done with this action, pass this to this action, right? Now, the problem is the instruction itself are non-deterministic. So if LLMs are not able to follow through that instruction, then your logic is broken, right? It is very much possible that LLMs don't understand to pass that information between actions, right? When it's a possibility, it happens rarely, but it's a possibility. So instead of that, you just securely pass through your action within your, your Salesforce action. So you are no more determined, you are no more dependent on that instructions in the agent, right? It's no more.
It's like you make sure that the field is full, otherwise it'll hallucinate something, right?
Yeah, exactly. If agents hallucinate, You don't want to break your workflow. So that's
Okay.
cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So next, the scope, right? So scope best practices are pretty simple. It's basically you're gonna tell imagine that you're explaining the scope to the new employee. Let's say you hire a new employee for your organization. What would be his job? What is his boundary? That is what you're gonna convey, and be explicit about permissions and limitations, like what it can do, what it cannot do, and clear, unambiguous language around the boundaries. So this is like scope is like setting the boundaries. Okay. So that is very important. We call it guardrail 2, So this is like limiting and telling the agent that, hey, your job is only this, don't go beyond that, So that way it is guardrailed, and that's why, it's very limited and scoped. Scopes are also very important, actually. Like if you don't put scope to your agent, like if you don't convey it properly, it might deviate in a different direction, and then the consequences of that is it will not pick up action, because it might look for some other action that might not be there at all in this topic, and then it might fail, or it might hallucinate and come back with something else. So that's why it's important. So topic instruction, right? Topic instructions are, in my opinion, for 3 things. Okay, one is guiding action selection. They help your agent choose which action to use for specific situations. So that is where the topic instructions are useful. And then setting conversation patterns. So they establish how your agent should interact with customers, like how your agent should interact with employees and customers. That is the conversation pattern is where you define. And finally, topics are where you provide more business context to your users, like your company's process and terminology. So this is what these topics are meant for. These three things. And you need to understand that. Like what I'm seeing is some people, like topic instructions are really placed where to decide, like you have to decide, this is where you have to decide whether you want a deterministic action or a non-deterministic action. If you want something to be consistently performing, it has to always be a deterministic action. That means to build a flow or an apex or something which is deterministic, right? In Salesforce, it's always flows, apex, or sometimes it's APIs, right? If you are dealing with other systems. So that is what you need to build. But sometimes for some things, it can be non-deterministic. Like, for example, come up with an email, right? That's a non-deterministic action. Or verify this piece of document, based on, these sets. And that could be a non-deterministic action because, that is a non-deterministic thing that you want to use agents' intelligence, right? So that is where it is important. Like, you understand this. Like, when you're designing your agents, you need to be like, okay, what is it that are non-deterministic actions here? What are the actions that I want to be deterministic? And if you look at the instruction has to be minimal. They has to guide your agents to choose the action. They also have instructions on conversation patterns, like how they should ask customers, and then provide more business context so they start understanding your terminology. So this is all the 3 things, right? And again, define your terms. Do not assume that the agent knows what the industry term means. Again, as I said, they might be trained on something else. Be specific about sequences, like if steps should happen. And this is one of the things I see is like, should I write one instruction? Should I write multiple instructions? What is the best practice? Honestly, like the best practice is you just choose different instruction boxes. But if you want step-by-step things to happen in a certain order, then you'll have to choose that one box and make sure you have all the steps in there. And again, same thing, if you have too many steps there, you better convert that into a deterministic action if it's possible, because again, the same problem you'll run into, the context window of the large language model, that's where you will run into. Because what will happen is if you have too many instructions, like step by step, at some point the LLMs are not going to understand things and they're going to mess it up. So it's very important that you understand how the context window behaves in LLMs, and of course that same limitations apply here. So if you're getting really hairy and complex, you have to really think about it. Can I take some of these and turn into deterministic actions? So you reduce the complexity there, if that makes sense. I've seen people like writing like 20 things to follow. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work actually. If you need LLMs to follow those 20 steps one by one, probably they'll miss it out, right? the better way to do this is, again, find out how many of them are deterministic, how many of them are non-deterministic, and actually based on that design it. I would even like break the 20 steps into maybe 4 or 5 actions, because that will be easy to sequence than, you know, having one sequence at a time. Let LLMs first choose the action and then execute the steps, and then choose the action and execute the step, rather than giving one action and 20 steps. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. And then consistent terminology, that is very important. If you change the terms in your instructions, right, like if you say customers on one instruction and in the second instruction you start saying something else like subscribers, it's not going to understand. And then avoid absolutes, like always do this thing, never do this thing. These are called absolutes. You should avoid it actually. In fact, now we have that pencil check mark on these instructions where we find out if you are using absolutes, and we recommend that don't use absolutes, you know, because they can definitely significantly impact. So make sure you are intentional about how they're used in instructions if you're using. And pair actions with situations, like clearly specify which actions to use in which circumstances. This is really important. There are examples like do this when, you know, customer says to do this, perform this action only if customer says this. So those kind of things that you would want to add. And then finally, the action instructions, right? Till now, we were talking about topic instructions, but then you have to also write instructions for your actions. So again, 1 to 3 sentences explaining what action does, specify when this action should be used, very important in the action, and then list what information the action needs to run successfully. You have to list them out. That's very important. And then special condition, edge cases, they all should go to action instructions. I've seen all these things kind of done on the topic instruction level, but that is wrong. Again, you have to understand when to use action instructions, when to use topic instructions. If the instruction is very specific to an action, it's a condition for an action, do there. And include customer faces and examples. Examples are always helping because few shot prompting has more better chances of success. And then action instruction best practices again. Oh, I think I repeated the slide. And then when you're writing about inputs, clearly describe what these input variables are, because you will also write instructions for the input variables within that action, and specify the exact format like length, structure that you want, validation criteria. Now here, when you're writing validation criteria, if it is a strict business rule, make sure it is at the action level. You're validating it true in a, you know, true deterministic logic, not just putting on the action level. But if you put an action like, you know, an instruction where it's dependent on the customer, sometimes if you are not too strict about it, maybe you can have that in there in your input instructions too, just for the sanity. Yeah, so with that question, so one of the things, you know, that came out was the Agentforce guide. I definitely recommend that. If you search for Agentforce guide Salesforce, it is definitely one of the resources that I recommend. There's a lot of time that went into writing all these things. So I'll drop a link here, but if you search for it, it has a lot of information around, you know, it's like an architectural guide basically on how to implement agents and all the things, you know. Yeah, cool. With that, I'll probably stop actually and pause here for questions, clarifications.
Wow, that was great session. We got so many golden nuggets from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is all, we are all learning all at the same time. And one of the things I would say is, see, when the instructions, like when agent is not following your instruction, do not panic, because that's a normal behavior. They're trained on weights. Okay, so the way this thing works is, they are trained on the data. So as long as it has seen that data, it can recognize and do things. But sometimes it's like, it will be so obvious for you that, okay, this is so obvious, but agent is not following your instruction. That thing is totally normal behavior. And the way you solve that is by more prompting, or prompting in a different way. So you're trying to basically, you know, tune your prompt so it starts getting some patterns out of it. And sometimes, even if it's not possible, you're training then with few examples. So that is the key thing to understand here. That's how large language models work actually. They have a bunch of weights in them, and when you prompt, they convert whatever you have into weights, and then they start generating the next tokens at a time. So it's pretty matrix multiplication that happens within the neural network. And again, as I said, the behavior is, it could be that you pretty much know that it should follow that instruction really well. It's super clear to you. But again, as I said, it might not be clear to you, clear to the agent, because it would have never seen that pattern or never seen the data in their training data. And then they start hallucinating because they come up with their own thing. And the way to solve that is more prompting or moving into a deterministic logic if that's possible.
Okay, I think only some determined people are left behind now.
Nice.
I guess I have some questions.
Yeah.
For evaluation, like, how do you go about that? For example, I want to test out 10, 100 responses.
Very good
see
question. Yeah.
What is like the percentage failure rate?
Yeah.
Um,
This is a very good question. This is one of those things that even our engineering team. So what I see, the way our engineering team does is definitely testing center is the way to go. There are other tools too outside that you can always use and build solutions on. See, there's no one right answer to this, right? But testing center is really good. What it does is you come up with different forms of utterances, right? I mean, you can say the same thing in 10 different ways, right? And that's what you want is like create those scenarios and then run it against the agent.
and
then
is
see if
testing center meant for agents, or I think it's meant for other things too, right? For testing?
No.
Oh, it's just for, oh yeah, testing center, yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
never mind,
testing
sorry.
center is only that. So what it does basically is, again, you come up with all the utterances, your own utterances of possible utterances that you can have, and then it sees whether it's choosing the right topic. So right topic, right actions, and then it compares against the expected. So you fill out the expected column and say, for this action, I want this topic, I want this actions to happen. So and then it gives you an evaluation report of saying, okay, 80% of the times it's able to do this. So it kind of really helps you understand, because if your score is about, like, let's say 70 to 80% in the testing center, you say, okay, your agents are like following, right? If your score is less than that, you keep tweaking your prompts so you can increase that score. And you need to keep testing it, like running it every day probably, and testing it, with, especially with every release though, at least I would do with every release, because those are good metrics. I've seen that happen even within Salesforce. I've seen that they have a automated pipeline that they run every day, and that kind of shows whether this is in green or red. And that is how they do. It's like they come up with all the utterances sample, they throw to the large language model, see if they're working as expected. And if something goes wrong, they know that, okay, something is broken, right? Yeah.
One more thing is don't expect 100% accuracy all
Yeah.
the time.
Never. Yeah.
Close enough is good enough.
And you said you were working with some clients with like 20-step flows and things like that. And you would
Flows? No.
or like not flows, but like, like 20
Instructions.
steps in
I've
the
seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah. So like, can you share what those use cases were, or if they're
Yeah,
like
some
high
people want
level?
to. Yeah, see, I mean, I don't want to disclose the client name, but
You don't have to disclose it to client,
yeah.
but like maybe just
But
like
one of the things I saw was they were running some kind of a survey, through the agent, like step by step. Give me this question, give me that question. And they had like hundreds of questions. You see, it's not even like you're not even talking about 10 questions, you're talking about 100 questions, right? And they had a lot of instructions actually. So obviously the agent is not going to be able to do it, honestly. I mean, I would never do it that way, right? But one way you could do that, if you were to solve that, is taking into actions and categorizing them, right? Like how we have topics, basically, right? So you would create probably a prompt template for a specific category and say, okay, 5 questions in this. And then you say, agent, as an agent, go to this topic, right, first. And when you are done with this topic, go to this different topic, right? Go to this different topic. That way it will probably work, you know.
Is there any advantage to using like the Agentforce survey collection rather than just using a screen flow to just
Yeah, I agree. I know that was overused. Yeah. I would probably just drop a link there, say, hey, you know, click on it, move to a flow screen.
But do you think like I was talking to some Salesforce employees or a lot of clients, and they were talking about service was the really big use case for external clients. Like that's like the thing that people are very seeing a lot of success. Like, can you share like what are like some of the areas are like the most successful implementations that people see in the Agentforce?
Yeah, I think service is good use case, but I think it has use case in everything, right? Like think about, you know, small experiences. See, you know this, right? Most of the experiences that we use today are broken in a way. I'll tell you, like, you know, I give this story always. Like, see, I have, uh, you know, I had to travel to Canada just like you. Where are you, in Vancouver? Did you go to Vancouver?
Yeah, I'm actually at UBC campus right now.
Oh, UBC. Okay, that is where I was. You know, a month back. Beautiful city here in Canada.
Oh, Vancouver is beautiful. This time of the year is amazing.
Yeah, it's truly incredible, right? So I was looking for a credit card that would not cost me international transaction fees, right? And if I go to the, you know, I don't want to mention the client name, but let's say Chase website, right? If I go to that, they have brochures on like these credit cards, like they have, you know, 10, 11 different credit cards, and they have brochures for each of them, and they have all these terms and conditions written in like small letters. And I had to like read like all these 10 to figure out, okay, which one will definitely suit my need. Instead, if they had an agent there
would be
sitting
amazing.
somewhere, I would have just gone and said, okay, I want to travel, you know, I'm looking for a credit card that has like 0% international transaction fees, and boom, it comes up with these two credit cards. Like, these are two credit cards, go choose it, right? So this is one use case that I'm saying, right? Whether you're marketing to your customer, or you are, you know, servicing to your customers, or sales, everything is use case. I'll tell you sales use case, right, that we show in the demos, like creating codes and all these things, like generating codes. Like creating a code itself, like if you look at what sales has to do today, it's like 10 different things they have to do in the system. They have to click around, you know, create these opportunities, click on that, you know, create the code, like attach line items, and then click on these buttons, like 10 different buttons. That's not what you want. They want rapid experience. Like, you want to improve, like you want to give them the time back so they can connect with the customers. So instead of that, they could have an agent where they just speak to the agent and say, hey, you know, I closed this opportunity today, and, you know, these are the two products that my customer is purchasing. Can you go ahead and create a code for me and send an email when you're done? That's the kind of experience that you want, right?
I'll just stop the recording. So
Yeah,
Kind of,
Mohit,